This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, August the 16th, 2022, episode 396. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. My name is Nick Craig. You can give me a follow over on the Twitterverse at Nicholas M. Craig. You can also check out my website, nickcraig.com, where you can check out my daily political antics on the Wilmington's Morning News podcast, or social media stuff you'll find at nickcraig.net. And I know that's a lot of websites, so you can head on over to infectionpodcast.com if you really want to have a lot of fun. Lots of good stuff over there. If you do head over to infectionpodcast.com, you will likely see that I do not do this show alone. Joining me as he does each and every week, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Hello, Brian. Hope you're doing well.
Hello. Yes, and thank you very much. Of course, as Nick said, we have a lot of sites you can go to. If you want to get me at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and Truth Social.
Now, hold on. What was this? Didn't you have a home website you were working on at one point, like a family website?
Oh, yeah, I do. I do have, I mean, should I give that out? It has my baby registry on there right now.
Oh, okay, then never mind. No, because I remember at one point you
But
mentioned
I
the
do
URL.
have one.
You mentioned it at one point during the show, and I don't remember what it was. So,
it's pretty much my name, and that's it. So,
okay,
it's very short. People, when I give that email address out, people are like, "It's what?"
My favorite
because it's just
is when I go to a store that I don't want their emails from. I have spam at nickcraig.net. So they're like,
yeah,
you want to sign up for our rewards program? You get 25% off your order. I'm like, oh, absolutely. What's a good email? Spam at nickcraig.net. And they're always like, and I get the, it works out. So,
well, I'll once I have the baby registry on there, off of there, and I have it more of the normal thing, I'll give that out.
Perfect. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the
spot.
It
definitely works. No. But if you want to get my blog, that's biteoftech.com. Of course, that's Bite of Tech with an I. And then, as Nick said, go to infectionpodcast.com, where we've got a link to go to our Discord server. We've got 11 ARC servers going right now, so people playing on there on a daily basis. So if you're interested in playing on ARC, we have it as a cluster. And so you can transfer your characters and dinos and everything between all of those. We have a politics channel in there. We've got news channels, so perhaps there's a topic that you think we should be covering that we're not. Something, maybe a game. It could be anything that you think is relevant to the show. Post a link in there and we'll review it before the live show starts. If you want to watch the video form of the podcast, we have that through Twitch, YouTube, BitChute, and DLive, and those are live, and then there's recordings on a lot of those after the fact. But if you're wanting to listen to the audio, that one is uploaded after the show is done, so you'll just have to wait. But by that time, you'll have access to the show notes. And so for that particular episode, if you're listening, you can go and click on that, and there will be links and videos and everything that we refer to or maybe show during the live broadcast. You can go right in there and have access to all of those and maybe play while we're playing it when you're listening to it, and that way you don't miss out on the visuals. Because we get sometimes when we're showing off different games or things about Unreal Engine that they're showing off, a lot of times we'll show those videos and it really helps. If you want to support us, there's a support button up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support, where someday when they have in-person conventions again, maybe we'll pull it together.
Yes. Brian, thank you very much for that, as always. And speaking of in-person conventions, we have to take a trip back in memory lane to just 2 weeks ago, back to let's see, let me get the exact date on this. This would be August the 7th. This is when we discussed this story, Brian, which you would have heard on your Infection podcast, as I like to call it, back on August the 7th. Let's roll that clip. Hold on a second. Let's roll the clip. Ally.
Yes.
Hey, I don't know if this is. I normally like to think I've got a pretty good grasp on things. What is the ongoings? What is the pulse? I can't figure this one out at all. Yeah. You have a headline article in here from Massively OP, and it reads, TwitchCon will have no mask or vaccine requirement despite the ongoing pandemic. and it reads
How many years has this been an ongoing pandemic?
All right, Brian. So that was just 2 short weeks ago. At this point, literally 14 days. It turns out we do the show every Tuesday, so it actually works out to be just 14 days ago. It's amazing how numbers and math. Yeah, imagine how that works. And I see as I check out our show notes here this week that Twitch not only did a switcheroonie on it, a switcheroony, but they have now gone full in on the COVID-19 pandemic. So what exactly happened here? Because it seems like we would have been if you Brian got knocked if you watched the show on August the 2nd and then were in a coma for months until TwitchCon and got out of your coma, and the first thing you heard was TwitchCon's got masks, you would think, damn it, Brian and Nick lied to me. They misled me. Seems like a far-fetched situation, but it's possible. But actually, no. Twitch switched their viewpoint, did they not? Yeah.
So on the 12th, so that was this past Friday, they sent out a tweet saying, "We've heard from many of you that you want a safer TwitchCon. Oh, yeah. So we're updating our policy. Masks will be required indoors, as well as either proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test."
How did this go from no vaccines, no mask, no test, to not only are you required to wear a mask the entire time, but then you have to show your vaccine and a negative COVID test? Wow. From literally one extreme to the other.
Taken within 72 hours of attending the show.
Ugh.
Masks will not be required in outdoor spaces such as the Kappa Cabana, the TwitchCon party, or the waiting in line outside. So,
yeah, waiting in line to put your mask on.
Now, if you're waiting in line outside, that's when you have piles of people all masked together, grouped within inches of one another. But don't worry, the place where you're inches from one another, you don't need that mask, so that when you get inside, you have a good chance of being sick, but you'll have your mask on, then you won't give it to everyone else who's already given it to you. The whole point of the mask is kind of messed up. I don't think people actually think it through and realize what the point of the mask is. It's for a person who's sick not to transmit it. If you're not sick, it's not preventing you from getting it.
So there's a couple of things to take away from this. First, as I mentioned in the show back on the 2nd, either an unusual ally, which I think now we have determined that is not the case at all, or just complete and total disconnection. But Brian, even with this, you have tweets coming out from people that call themselves influencers saying, while I'm glad you changed your mind, I'm still disappointed. Again, because you can never appease the mob, right? The mob says, make masks and vaccines required. You do that, and it's still never enough. This is the age-old trick. While I'm glad you changed your mind, I'm still disappointed. This should have been an easy decision from the get-go, and it took outrage, in all caps, to get you to care about the health of the people who love Twitch. For future events, I hope safety measures will be a priority from the start. So even with this change, it still isn't enough for the political left. Let's just call it what it is.
Well, and the thing is the CDC just released their new guidelines that say pretty much you don't need masks, the vaccines don't work, just whatever, keep going doing what you're doing is pretty much what I got out of the.
Their new guidance indicates that unmasked and masked people are both believed to have similar, or vaccinated and unvaccinated people have similar immunities at this point due to they say that this is from the CDC. 96% of people have some level of immunity, either from a vaccine or natural immunity. It also claims that there's no longer a 6-foot space gap that is recommended, and you no longer need to quarantine if you've been in close contact with somebody unless you have symptoms and you're actually sick. Which is, by the way that most people live their lives prior to COVID. Well, yeah, I mean, if you were sick, you would stay home from work or call in or something. You wouldn't do stuff. That's like, hey, I'm not going to go over to grandma's house when I'm not feeling well because they're older and I might get sick. That's what that's how I grew up. I think that's how most people operate. Yeah. So that's the CDC's guidance now, and Twitch has now gone from what would have been a normal convention to the most irrational, stupid health measures because of a bunch of losers that don't want to have any fun. That's what I've taken away.
Well, and of course, here's Kotaku. When they say especially when TwitchCon's line is that, well, San Diego doesn't have rules, so we won't either. You know, that's
well, yeah, of course. That I mean, that makes sense. Don't you follow? I thought the whole thing was follow the science and follow the local health restrictions. I mean, that's what I was told for 2.5 freaking years. As the government came in and bulldozed your business, you were told to trust the science and to trust and to follow local guidance. So when this is what I don't understand. When the local guidance goes away, it's then you just make shit up. That's what they've done now. The local guidance is gone. And now they're just decided, well, we still want, I mean, with monkeypox going on, you think they ought to cancel TwitchCon completely because the way that thing spreads, everybody at TwitchCon liable to die of monkeypox.
Well, I mean, yeah, the furry convention's got to end.
Well, I mean, all these things. You don't think, I would argue that monkeypox is going to be a bigger risk at TwitchCon than freaking COVID. But these people have been vaccinated 17 times. I mean, that should be the real concern.
And that's the thing is, that's the frustrating thing is, all the people that you're hearing about now getting sick are all these people that were Jill Biden just got announced as being COVID. She's had every single vaccination. If I went to a store and bought something that's supposed to protect me from a certain thing, I would return that to the store if it had 100% failure rate. And so far, what I'm seeing from the vaccinations is 100% failure rate.
You mean if this glass, which has a little bit of water, did not hold this water, Brian, and it was leaking out?
Got a hole in the bottom of the glass. I would say, hey, this glass is defective. But if you say, oh, the vaccines are defective, no, show me your card. But the water leaks out the bottom. It's not holding water. But no, we're pouring the water in. Hold your glass out. It works fine. No, it doesn't. There's a hole in the bottom of my glass. Every time I put water in it, it pours out the bottom. It's defective. They won't accept that about the vaccine. Because obviously it doesn't work. You're telling me Jill Biden does not have every single kind of COVID prevention technique you can imagine. Joe Biden didn't have every single kind of prevention possible. And I've gotten COVID less than they have. And I haven't had a single vaccination, and I wear the mask as minimal as possible.
So going back to the news here, so they have gone from no restrictions at all, which originally, and you know, I can understand, and I've said this, while I might disagree with it, I can understand wanting to do one or the other, Brian. I can understand either not having a vaccine requirement and asking people, and again, I'm not saying I agree with this, no vaccine requirement, but wear a mask. Okay, fine. Or vaccine or test requirement and no mask. I don't understand why these conventions, PAX, TwitchCon, and everything else are still requiring both. It doesn't make sense.
Because they know the vaccines do not work, but they don't want to say it because it makes them look stupid.
So then make everybody wear a mask and don't require them to have vaccine.
The vaccine, what's the point of the vaccine requirement?
Well, that's what I'm not understanding.
Prove a false, because everybody with the vaccine is still getting the sickness. So you're really making it so only the people that are unvaccinated are the only ones have to prove that they don't have COVID, because they have to come with a proof of not being sick. Why not make it? Why even care about the vaccine requirement? Because they know it doesn't work. So you're really bringing people in and encouraging them to get everyone else sick because you say, oh, you have a card, this magic card. Well, this glass holds so much water. You know, it works so well. The card means nothing. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. The vaccine does not do anything anymore. So who knows if it ever really did.
So then maybe the better solution for them would be to either have no testing, no vaccine, none of that, and wear a mask, or have a 72-hour test requirement for everybody.
Yeah, everybody has to bring in a test.
And again, while I would disagree with that and think it's stupid, at least it would be logical and it would make some sense. It would connect on some level. And again, I am, as even though I disagree with it and it's stupid, and Brian and I have, we've talked about it. We are not going to attend any of these events, maybe ever again, because of this nonsense, and it never appears it's going to end. But they can do what they want. They're allowed to have their own event, and good for them. If Twitch wants this, and obviously the Twitch community wanted this, then good. Then they should do what their community wants. I think it's stupid and ridiculous. It's virtue signaling to the highest level of magnitude. But Brian, I made a prediction about this?
Yes.
Did I give you a date on the prediction? Or did I just predict that they were going to switch?
You just said it was going to happen. Yeah, already. Twitch will reverse the no mask policy prior to the convention. So you just said prior to the convention, they'll reverse it.
So I guess that's
1
another
week later, 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
It was just one and a half weeks later they did reverse it.
So I guess another feather in my cap in the in this show now going on nearly 400 weeks, Brian. We've we've really nailed a lot of these predictions. So I guess we can add this to our maybe we should
Yep.
You need to send me a scanned copy of take pictures of every page in that book. We need a page on the website. We can track our prediction.
What we could do is just type them in. Yeah, I could type them in.
A prediction tracker on the website.
Yeah, so my next major game genre will be open world Western survival. That hasn't quite worked out yet.
Yeah, that was probably 3.5 years ago.
That was like yeah, that was our second guess.
Speaking of that, let me take over the reins of the show here, Brian. I actually played a game this week, which is exciting. I haven't played a game in a hot minute. Outer Worlds. We talked about this game a couple of years ago when it came out. It's on Game Pass, and I redid my gaming setup. So I have just my Xbox, Switch, and N64 in the living room now because those are the consoles that are meant for co-op. I have 4 controllers for the N64, the Xbox, and the Switch, and then I moved everything else in here. I moved my PS2, my Dreamcast, my NES, some of that stuff that's more just games I play by myself in here, so it works a little bit better. So I decided to fire up the Xbox after I was rearranging it in my setup and switched over to Game Pass, and I saw, okay, Outer Worlds. I said, they had it listed at the top as one of their games. So first I streamed it for a little while, and the streaming experience was all right, but there was a couple of little things that were, the screen kind of kept jittering, and I could tell it wasn't playing locally and whatever. So I downloaded the game. Outer Worlds is a lot of fun. It's from the original creators of Fallout New Vegas, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it is a Fallout-style-esque game. And you mentioned, cowboy space. It's not really the cowboy. It is a little bit outlaw space. Is maybe a better phrase to use. It is an outlaw space game. Have you played Outer Worlds?
Yeah, I played the beginning of it. It's more of a Western space opera.
Yeah,
is what it really is. There are some shows that they had that were kind of that theme, and they were really popular, but they're more of a cult type of a following. But that's the general theme. Because if you think of a Western, it's the frontier going out and kind of pushing the limits of where humans have been, which they did in the Old West. We weren't counting the Native Americans back then. But pushing the limits of where mankind has been, and and settling and doing all this. Well, that's what a space opera, Western space opera is going out to planets and creating civilizations and creating your own little house. So yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's got kind of the feel of the old New Vegas atmosphere and the way that the interaction goes. Definitely a little more polished and not as buggy, but it's a lot more newer of a game. But definitely one we're sitting down and playing because there's a lot of content to it.
There's a lot.
I know I played it early on, and I know that they've been working on it quite a bit. So I'm not sure what kind of content they have now, but it was fun. A lot of big open world to run around and shoot things and gather.
Yeah. And I'm typically not a fan of open world games, but this one is nice. Similar to what you have with Fallout. You have a mission list. And you can select the missions that you want, and then it kind of guides you for the mission that you're trying to complete or quest that you're trying to complete, and that I can handle. So that is what. Not necessarily relevant to what we were talking about, but that is something I've actually been playing this week, and I know they announced a new one a couple of weeks ago, Outer Worlds 2. So I'll be curious to see what comes of that. Yeah. So there you go.
Hey, let's talk about, since we're talking about gaming here initially, let's talk about Google Search is going to be including some of the cloud gaming titles and streaming titles in the search results, because that's not something they've done before, but pretty much where you'll get for something that's on the Game Pass, it'll show as a result, and then you can launch it from there. So they're including some of these games and shows, because normally, if let's say you're searching for a movie, you're searching for a show, it's going to show the information about it, maybe then a link to the IMDb or to the streaming service. But this should take you, because Stadia has their cloud gaming. I'm assuming because they have to have kind of an equal footing, or else they're going to get sued if they want to show any of their cloud gaming stuff there as an initial result. But now they're going to be having if you're searching for Google Mobile, GeForce Now, Xbox Cloud Gaming, Amazon Luna, a lot of these different cloud gaming services where it'll show a box where there's trial available, ways that you can pretty quickly, it really just getting people to find that there are games available for streaming. And if they're doing a Google search, they have access to internet. And when you're doing a streaming, it doesn't really need a super fast computer with a really nice video card. So it's really opening up their market to a whole set of people that really aren't in this kind of circle of what we do, talking about these services, really understanding what's available now. And if they are doing it on a phone, that really opens it up because they can stream it right to their phone. And some of these have touch screen interfaces, especially like the Game Pass. There's some of them that are optimized for mobile and you're able to play them. Now, not all the games are like that, but so you'll probably get a lot of people that are now discovering this whole cloud gaming, streaming type of a gaming system, which is just going to make it bigger. Because I think, as we've talked about plenty on the show, that is definitely where everything is heading. It's kind of the new thing. Of course, there are limitations. Not every game is going to be able to do this, but I think we found that most games work just fine streaming. And I think the real test will be, can you do Fortnite? At what point is it not quite fast enough? Is it too laggy? Are they going to be able to keep people happy with the kind of more of the Twitch type of games?
Well, and this has become more and more of an issue in the streaming realm, streaming television and movies over the past couple of years. Is okay, I've got a Roku or a Fire Stick or a Google, Samsung's, whatever their OS is called, TV OS, and I've got these services. I've got Netflix, I've got Amazon, I've got Plex. I want to watch Yellowstone. Where is Yellowstone available? Now, I know where Yellowstone is available, but what about the general consumer? Do they know where Yellowstone is available? Oh, no, it's on Paramount Plus. Oh, okay, I don't have that. Then I'm not going to watch it. Whatever. That's been a big problem in the streaming realm because you can end up buying or subscribing to a service to watch a show that you would have access to somewhere else.
Some other way, yep.
Yeah, and this will eventually become a problem with gaming when everything is streamed and there's various services to do it. Is, okay, I want to play the new Call of Duty. Where, for example, and it's not a streaming title, but the new Call of Duty. Did you know that it's available on Steam and Battle.net? Now we talked about that months ago, but for folks that have just
your average person, they're not going to know that it's on Steam.
Well, yeah, of course not. Why would you? The games haven't been on Steam in almost a decade, so it's on Battle.net. Well, it's also on Steam. So that's cool that they're doing that. Are they going to be showing things? I see here it says Stadia is obviously going to be in this. You think they're going to prioritize the Stadia results above everybody else's, like they do with Gmail and Maps and things like that?
I have a feeling they probably will.
Which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. It's literally their service and their search. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think as long as it's within a reasonable space of the others. I'm trying to see if we can pull up and have it see. I'm not, I have to look and see what they actually have to do in order to pull it up. I see a lot of places that you can buy it, but I'm not seeing it pull up in this way yet. But
okay,
we'll see. If they do it too crazy, they'll get sued, and they've been learning that over and over again with all these different services of, when we prioritize ourselves, countries sue us. I mean, Europe sued them. I think the UK sued them. They have tons of fines in some of these countries because of them prioritizing themselves first. So I think they've backed a lot off of that and don't just show Google services anymore.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you care where we go from here? We've got.
No.
I've got one from Microsoft that actually is kind of along what we were just talking about.
Sure. What do you got?
That work? Okay. So Microsoft is making a claim that Sony is keeping games off of the Game Pass by paying developers blocking rights.
Isn't that exactly what Microsoft is doing by purchasing all these companies and keeping them out of Sony's ecosystem?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're purchasing them, yes, and then getting exclusive, but they're paying companies to say, hey, don't go on to the Game Pass.
Well, so let's be clear. They're not saying don't go on Game Pass. They're paying them and saying you're staying with us and not the other service.
Yeah, be exclusive to us. And so this, wow. I mean, I don't know that it really upsets me because the developer themselves are perfectly capable of choosing who to put a product, which service to put a product on.
Yeah.
And I kind of get tired of government agencies and different people stepping in and saying, well, you have to do this and you have to, I mean, I'm a libertarian, for goodness sakes. I don't think anybody should be telling anybody anything outside of their own realm, right? And so here, if the company, a developer, wants to say, hey, you know what, you paid me this much extra, I'll make this a Sony exclusive. That's pretty much the same thing that they've been doing. They did it with Spider-Man and all these before. Like, how is this very much different? Now they're just saying, rather than going to that console, just don't go to the Game Pass. Don't put your game on Game Pass so that people actually purchase it through our service. So they actually have to make the decision. Do I purchase the game here or do I purchase it here? Not that there's a blanketed, it's pretty much like saying, don't put it on Netflix. If we're going to sell your product, don't put it on Netflix, where it's the service that a huge percentage of everybody has. Which is pretty much the same thing, because you don't think of Netflix as buying a game. You're just going to go watch, or buying a show, like you would maybe if you're purchasing it through Amazon.
Yeah,
I think this is very much the same thing.
Saul's mentioning Epic Games, plenty of games they've struck deals, and it's funny because for the last, as long as the console wars have really been going on, so let's say over the last 15 plus years or so, this has been a big thing for a period of time that you had exclusivity has always been a thing. Now, It's important to note that this is dealing with a legal situation that is involving, and Microsoft is using this more as a cover your ass in Brazil, in which the Brazil National Competition Regulator is reviewing the acquisition of Activision. And they're saying, well, hey, that's not really a problem because Sony is doing this and having their own exclusive things, and we're kind of doing the same. So that's not really Microsoft complaining about it per se, because that would be incredibly hypocritical. They're using this as an example of, we don't own every single game, obviously. Look at what is going on right here.
Sony's able to compete.
Yes. Sony is competing and playing people and paying companies to have exclusivity, which they've done for years. So this is more of a cover your ass legally, a CYA legally, than it is Sony or Microsoft complaining about it, because they're not. And obviously they wouldn't, because that wouldn't make any sense.
And Microsoft claims that they put zero energy in this whole console war thing. You can put zero energy when you're winning, first of all, and as long as you keep your pace and keep doing what you're doing, you're going to continue to win. So if they were behind, guess what? He would be putting some energy into the whole console war thing if they were behind. But because you're not, you say, oh, I'm not putting any energy. That's like the team that's up by 20. They're saying, well, we're not putting any energy into winning, but, we're just going to continue winning. You're going
to get so tired of it.
That's how it works.
You're going to win so much,
Brian.
Tired
of it. You get so tired of winning. You're going to win so much, you're going to be tired of it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Microsoft's probably not too far off from that, because they are winning. It is constantly win, win, win. And obviously, the big uphill battle right now is going to be, what does the FEC I think is it the FEC or the FTC that will handle this merger? I think it'll be the FTC. Yeah, it'll be the FTC.
I think it's the FTC.
It'll be interesting to see what they, what the final resolution is. But it seems as of this point, I would assume the FTC would have already kind of put the kibosh on this if they were going to. It's been 6 months now since this was first announced. So that's what we're following.
And one thing I've been hearing too lately, and I didn't put it in here because it's a lot of rumors at the moment, but they're going to be pushing out their PlayStation to PC.
Yeah,
so I'm actually the ability to play PlayStation on the PC. And one of the things was that Spider-Man game was kind of hinting at that because of things in the code or things in market. I'm not sure where the materials were, but that's something that they're also figuring out. This whole hardware thing is kind of an anchor. So having everything so tied right to this hardware and having to have a console is killing them.
I want to talk about this though, and it isn't in the notes, and I've got the article here. I'll throw it in the notes, so that we can look at it, and I'll clean it up here in a minute. But the story is over at PC Gamer, and it references, as you talked about, the PC version of Marvel's Spider-Man refers to the PlayStation PC launcher, which sounds exactly what you would expect. It is a launcher for the PlayStation games on PC. Yep. But see, that's not the solution. And Microsoft themselves have been getting away from this, and you're seeing now, they're obviously with the merger of Activision Blizzard, the new Call of Duty is going to be available on Steam. It's not available on Battle.net and the Xbox Windows Store. It's available on Battle.net and on Steam. So it's on both platforms.
Yep.
Why would Sony, after the PC gaming community has spent more than a decade bitching and complaining about Origin and the Uplay launcher and Battle.net and the Epic Games Store, why in their right mind would they not just put these games on Steam? Why would they want to separate these things? That just seems to be a losing avenue at this point.
Well, and they've released 5 games, first party games in the last 2 years on PC. They did the Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition, Days Gone. They did Predator Hunting Grounds. That was so the Horizon Zero Dawn was 2020. Days Gone and Predator were 2021. God of War at the very beginning of this year, and then just now, really like in the past week, this was the remastered Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Now, these are games that have been out on their service for a while.
Horizon Zero Dawn, I mean, Christ, we saw that at PAX like 3+ years ago. It's not a new game at all.
Yep. Yeah, and so I think that this is something where they're really barely dipping into that market. I think they seem to be holding back. And the streaming, I think the streaming would be a much stronger option for them. Again, because they're really hedging on people wanting to use PCs to play their games. Microsoft is not going that way. They're going to the whole streaming service, more the Netflix model, and I think that in the end they're going to win with that still, because you could remaster all these games years after people have already played them, and you're only going to get so many sales on the PC market, because guess what? A lot of people with PCs already have consoles, and they've already played. I played most of these games.
And I guess I'll say this: I am not anti-launcher. Obviously, if you want to play a game bad enough, Brian, you'll go and get the launcher. And I'm not opposed to Sony having their own software. Microsoft has obviously got their own with the Windows Store. So if you wanted to have your own launcher, for example, the Game Pass, if you want to stream games on Game Pass, you have to use the Microsoft app to do it, the Xbox app to do it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. If you want to stream games through the new Sony PlayStation Plus revamped 3.0, whatever the thing is, great. But why would you want a store? Why would you want to handle a marketplace, game launchers, updates, friendly? How is any of this stuff going to, I mean, what is it just going to, is it all going to connect through PSN? It just doesn't seem to be a lucrative thing. And looking at this game, this list of games, who cares?
Yeah. And there's no things that are coming out and going to make people go to the PC to purchase these. And so I think that they're kind of in the old way of thinking. They're so just stuck on, well, we have to maintain exclusivity. We have to maintain people coming to our store and purchasing, because that's one thing that they have been very strict on is you go to the PlayStation Store and that's where you buy your games. And they don't give very many sales. You know, they don't give you really good, easy ways. Their PlayStation Now service was never any good. The PS Plus system was never really any good. All these things that they've offered you have not been that great. I mean, the prices, I have a number of PlayStations here. They never had good sales.
Not a number of PlayStation games.
Very low quality.
Not a number of PlayStation games, a number of PlayStations, correct?
Yeah, I've got PlayStations. Yeah. I got 3 or 4 here. And so it's like,
subject matter expert.
Yeah, the games that the sales, you know me, I love sales. I love buying games when they're on sale. Yeah. PlayStation did a horrible job of putting games on sale. They'd be like, oh, we have games on sale, 10% off. Okay, well, great. That's a 5-year-old game. Thank you for giving me 10% off. That's wonderful.
You know who's really bad with that?
They weren't very good at it.
I've got an Oculus, and Meta is notoriously bad. When Steam had a, what was the last sale, the Steam summer sale, like maybe 2 months ago or something? Was that the Steam summer sale?
Yeah,
I don't know
something like that.
So they decided, like everybody else, Steam's doing their summer sale, we got to do ours. And it was like these ridiculously pitiful sales. It's like 8% off, and you're like, wow, doesn't even cover the tax on the cost of the game. And the funny part about this is that a lot of Sony games are already on Steam. So they would either be taking these games off of Steam, which would be stupid, or selling them on both, which is equally as stupid. Now I get it, because from a company standpoint, Brian, you can roll out your own launcher. You can essentially collect 100% of the profits besides the cost of running the credit card or running the transaction. So there is a lucrative thing to be made there, but that only works with volume. If you don't have volume on sales, it doesn't matter. And I just don't believe that Sony is going to be breaking down the door and selling thousands of games a week on their new launcher. It just doesn't. If it even comes to fruition, maybe it's an old snippet of code that got accidentally merged back in. But they were thinking about doing it relatively recently, like within the last couple of months. I read a story similar to this. So I don't know. I just don't understand why any company right now with
seems like they always lag when it comes to what the market wants.
Which by the way is a good thing, because if they lagged far enough and they don't introduce their own launcher, that's a good thing, because the launcher craze was a mess, and now you've seen everybody get away from it. I mean, it's even to the point where the EA games are now part of one of the Xbox Plus tiers. Like that is the level of backlash that these things have seen. I don't know. Maybe I still hold the littlest shred of hope, and I've got a PS4 over here, and I still have 3 or 4 PS4 games in cellophane that I've never opened. I still am of the hope that Sony one day, I'm going to sit down here on a Tuesday, start getting prepped for the show, and read that Sony has come out, has busted down the door like the IRS coming in to tell you to pay your taxes on Venmo, and just blow it all open, Brian, like a raid of Mar-a-Lago, and say, hey, here we are. This is what we've been working on for the past year, and these are all of the great new things that we have, and we've been quiet about it. We kept it closed-lipped, and hey, Microsoft, suck on this. That's what I'm hoping. But as time goes on and on and on, it seems less and less likely that Sony does have an ace up their sleeve or anything up their sleeve other than one of those stupid handkerchiefs that you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling. Because they're nothing. Yep. There's nothing from them at all. The revamped Sony Plus system is a joke. It is way too expensive. The game catalog blows. They have nothing to compete at all right now. Nothing.
But I think that the whole COVID thing took all these companies for a loop, because it changed the whole market. It changed how people interact with video games. And then the economy has tanked, and that's changed how people buy video games, to where subscription is a service where you pay for a subscription, you have access to all these games. Seems a lot more appealing to a person than paying, $70 and getting one game that may or may not be good, and then being like, okay, well, there went dinner for, went what I was going to pay for dinner with. People just are not wanting to throw money away right now, and I think people feel like if you spend $70 on a game, you're throwing it away. But if you pay for a service where if I don't like that game, I can just switch to another one, just like Netflix. I can switch to another game, and hey, if that one's good, then I got my money's worth out of the subscription. I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, you could amateurize a PlayStation or an Xbox Game Pass subscription, and I'd have to remember what the different tiers are. By the way, tip of the week: if you are wanting Game Pass or somewhat, use Bing and sign up for Bing Rewards. I have not ever paid $1 for Xbox Game Pass on the PC or the Xbox. Just switch your default search engine to Bing, sign up for Bing Rewards. They're selling your data just like Google is. It doesn't really matter. And you can get free Game Pass. Point aside, you can essentially buy 2 games a year for the cost of a Game Pass subscription. That is the difference. So and some people that might be a good thing. If you only play FIFA or only play the new Call of Duty or only play the new Madden, that's the only thing you do on your Xbox or PlayStation, then Brian, I disagree with you. The point is stupid.
Yeah, the subscription doesn't work at that point.
If you play anything else and buy any more than 2 games a year, it makes a lot more sense to have Game Pass and the game. Like, for example, I pre-ordered the Call of Duty on Battle.net, and I was like, damn. I mean, it was like $77 after it was said and done with the tax. And I was like, Jesus Christ, $80 for a video game? I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, but when when I go to the store and I see something for $80, I'm like, I'm not even interested in this. I'm as cheap. I'm as cheap as they come. But damn,
there was a report put out here in the week or two where they're saying that 80% of the people in the United States are concerned about paying their mortgage.
I'm sure they
about paying their house payment. You know, I think that people don't realize there's a lot of people that are in a state of, well, am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage this month? The economy is trash, but people don't want to talk about it. Like, people don't talk about it. One other thing too, I want to, if we can transition here.
But yeah, before you do that, I just want to. McGroggan said, "I'd rather buy games I can come back to later," and that is also that is part of that as well. Is, you know, how long are these games staying on these services? The good news, if you're playing a game that is owned by either Microsoft or Sony, the likelihood is that game will be available presumably forever. But McGroggan says, I'm done with the subscriptions in general. And I think, Brian, you talk about people being unable to pay their mortgage payments and stuff. A lot of that is because they do have subscriptions to Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Now. And then you're bleeding out $400, $500, $600 a month between your internet bill, phone, cell phone bill, and all your subscription services on this stuff. Of course you can't afford your mortgage payment. You're bleeding $650 a month on subscriptions. So it can, it's very much a tightrope.
The subscriptions were supposed to get away from that, right? But that's the whole thing with the cable was they're getting away from cable because you were paying the $100 whatever bucks a month. And then they went to this, I can get this for $20. Oh, look how much money I saved. But then they keep adding on Disney Plus and Hulu and all these other ones, and they're right back to the same amount they were paying on cable with all those ads. I know.
With worse service, by the way, too. Significantly worse service for the same price as cable. It has so much more of a headache than traditional cable.
But McGroggan's one of those type of players where he will stick with certain games. He likes certain games and he plays them, as he said, for years. Your average consumer today, though, is not like that. They will play one game for a certain period of time. Oh yeah, kids will play. They're playing Fortnite for a long period of time, but that thing's constantly changing. You have a game that that doesn't change all the time. That's not constantly putting out updates. Most of today's kids are going to move on from that. They're like, oh, there's not a new skin. There's not new. What do I have to do? I have to finish a level. What are you talking about? And so it's just a very different demographic. But I think for a lot of them, they're finding that they want to play whatever's the latest for a little while, and then they switch to the next thing. So subscriptions for them work. Let's talk really quickly here about in China. We've been talking about the regulations and everything that they've had. That have been really hitting their gaming market pretty hard. And they found that there's been a 40 million drop in youth gamers since 2020. And it was at 122 million youth gamers, was they define them as, that's between 6 and 17, who played games more than 60 minutes a month.
60 minutes a month?
60 minutes a month.
Wow.
In 2022, that's now 83 million. So that's dropped 40 million. So almost a third of the total has dropped.
Now,
and so this right here is because they have those stupid regulations, and they've really cut down on what games are being released. They're not putting out new games, and they limit you to 1 hour in a specific time for your child. They play from 7 to 8 or 6 to 7 or whatever it is.
Can I make a counterpoint to you?
Yes.
Is it possible that this drop, is it possible that this recession, I guess you could say, in terms of gaming, is maybe because of the quality of the games? And obviously, I don't know what the quality of the games like are in China, but Brian, unless you are, I'll use myself as a perfect example. I was really hyped for Cyberpunk. That was the last game I was, excited for. I'm excited for the new Call of Duty. I have found personally, and I know I'm not the ideal example because I'm weird with how I play stuff, but I haven't found the quality, the games that have come out in recent years or months, I haven't found them very compelling. And I haven't played a lot.
Well, okay, so
maybe that's part of it too.
So here's some numbers on that. 77% of young gamers in China are playing fewer hours than before the regulations were brought in. So that was that regulation of you play between 8 and 9 p.m. on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, with 1 hour allowed on national holidays. So you get, that's their restrictions that they have. So before that, most of those kids, maybe you're doing something at that time. Maybe your parents don't want you playing between 8 and 9 p.m. on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. They don't let them play during the weeks. They can only play on the weekends. And then 1 hour on national holidays. And so 76% of youth gamers lowered their gaming hours after regulations were brought in and restricted their playtime to approved hours, with 71% of young gamers only playing for 3 hours per week or less. So that's definitely had it. But also, these new games aren't coming out. They're not accepting a lot of the new games. They're not allowing new games to come to the market there because they feel that they call them spiritual opium. They view gaming as they view gaming as feminizing their young men who they want for the military. They want them to be tough young men, and they're finding that games is making them less aggressive, less, the term manly. That's taking that away from them. And they want men that are ready to serve in their military, and it's making these kids that are in no way, shape, or form what you consider a soldier. Right? I mean, you have your ideal soldier, a guy who, got muscles and all this. Well, they view that as something that's killing that for them. And so they want to turn around and try to change it by regulating it where kids go out and play and do other things rather than sit on the computer, which I can't argue with because this is what it was like when I was a kid. And guess what? We ran around. You didn't have all these kids that are so out of shape like you do now because they're not sitting and eating, cheesy puffs at their computer all day. That's the real deal of it.
It's Hot Pocket and chocolate milk. So please, if you're gonna insult me, please get it right. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of different factors in there, and it's been very interesting to watch how. And by the way, you talk about an economy slowing. China reported a huge economic slowdown yesterday. In I don't know how they do their quarters over there. It would have been whatever their equivalent to their second quarter is in China. So that,
their property investment market's crumbling because the whole thing's fake anyways. They have so many regulations. They're locking people into their houses. I mean, they're now limiting all these ways that they can do things. It's just the country is kind of killing itself. It's going to have it's causing a lot of problems over there. None of it good, and it seems like these regulations do nothing but hurt. So one thing is, Beijing also recently began approving games for domestic release again after a 9-month freeze. So they had a 9-month freeze on them releasing games altogether. So, I mean, that's one thing that's probably hurt, as you said before, the quality of games coming out. They didn't have any new games for 9 months, just trying to make it so that these kids would have nothing. Plus, they put so many regulations. You can't have any feminine-looking guys, which our gaming market here would be like, what? You can't have, they had this list of all these things that you couldn't have. That's kind of the standard for the gaming market now. What are you talking about? What games are they? They're probably having to revamp and redo all these games they're getting ready to release because that is 99% of the games that are released here.
Yeah.
So, good old,
it is very
China.
interesting.
Gotta love them.
Yes, very good.
All right,
old China.
Let's talk about one. There's one I mentioned during the after show. Do you want to talk about this here really quick?
Sure.
So there's a game engine that was an alternative open source type of a game engine, and they made a change. It's called the Machinery, and it was one that you could go through. Yeah, the Machinery you could go through, and developers were making games on it. Well, they did change their EULA. That's their, they're pretty much the
end
thing
user
that you
license
accept.
agreement.
It says,
yeah,
that you accept when you do updates to the game or to the engine. Pretty much when something changes, they put out a new version, you usually will accept the new EULA. And they put something in there that says this: destroy any copies of the service or content in your possession, custody, or control upon termination of their license. So that was something new. So if your license with them is terminated for some reason, if they say, hey, you no longer have a license with us, you have to actually get rid of all copies and everything of their code, which you wouldn't think anything of. Okay, so sure, if you have some sort of a license that you have to do with them, and then you break their license agreement, or for some reason you're no longer eligible to hold that license, you can't use their product anymore. Well, a couple weeks after they put that in and got these people to accept the new EULA, they then said we're pretty much closing shop, and we're pretty much terminating all licenses, and they're requiring all developers to delete and destroy all copies of this engine, which kind of came out of the blue. I was hoping to see something that talked about why, because there's not really any
go to their
reason
website
that I saw.
Have you been to their website today?
Not today. Did they put something else out new?
Yeah, that's what they're currently.
Okay, well,
it's currently
taken down. Okay,
403 forbidden is what their website is currently reporting. So,
yeah, and the thing is, there wasn't really an explanation of this, like why this was happening, and now they're demanding it. The best thing I can think of is someone in their company may have stolen code, or somehow something got entered into the code where someone used information from another company, maybe that they came from, that they would have gotten sued for. Yeah, this is the kind of things that bring this on. But imagine if you were working on a project about to push this out to development, and then imagine Unreal Engine just all of a sudden tomorrow says, hey, all people that have any projects under Unreal Engine have to delete this. Have to delete them. That would be huge. Well, I can only imagine for a developer who's been working on a game for a year, 2 years on an engine like this, that all of a sudden they turn around and they're being told they can't use this engine anymore.
Well, and I think there's a very interesting, I don't know, I don't want to turn anybody off or say, word to the wise, but this is definitely something to be mindful of, and in so many different facets of, if you're going to put your eggs in the basket. I feel the same way with social media, Brian, and everything else, is you're going to put all your eggs in this basket of this engine, and then one day they decide it's time to pack up shop and, oh, by the way, delete everything that you have. Unfortunately, this is just this is the reality when with it doesn't happen often with open source, but could have just, and McGrogan says, could they have been bought? Could somebody have come out, bought the product, changed the name of it? They're going to white label sell it now, and the part of the agreement was it needs to be deleted, or some. Obviously, I don't think it was actually bought in this case, but something like that could potentially happen. And it is just unfortunately one of the risks of using something that is underground, I guess would be the word used. This is not an engine like Unity or Unreal that had mass adoption and everything like this.
No, not yet.
I mean, was there any games that were even out with this engine?
I'd have to look, but one thing that they really pushed with this was an engine built on a plug-in concept. It was going to be a bunch of plugins, so you could kind of piecemeal your engine together with features. Like, let's say you didn't need audio. I mean, I can't imagine a game that didn't need audio, but your audio part of it would be a plugin. Whatever aspects of it, so that you could really narrow down the game engine. Now, there was 3 people that worked on this, that started this company. Okay. And they came from, if I remember correctly, let's see, I don't remember off the top of my head now. I do remember seeing a lot of articles, because one of them was a female designer, and of course, the second that there's a female developer in a project like this, they really push it on a lot of these sites. And I just kept seeing over and over again, there's a female making a game engine along with these 2 other guys, and they it seemed like an interesting concept. I like the idea of making it. Oh yeah, they worked for Star Trek Online. I think it was Cryptic.
Right.
And so she and Derek, another developer, worked there. And perhaps the best I can think of is maybe they took some internal information that they weren't supposed to leave the company. It was maybe under NDA.
Yeah, it's possible.
The company then saw that there was information here, things that were exclusive to them knowing, because they were from that company, that they put into this. That's a perfect way for you to get your project pulled. So all they have to do is send you a letter saying, hey, we're going to sue the pants off of you if you don't take down all content that has this related to it. Maybe the whole modular plugin system was an idea that they learned from their previous company, or maybe how they're doing the rendering and how a lot of the code. Who knows if they took a bunch of code from their old company and started the game, because it takes a lot to build a game engine. It takes a long time. Yeah. That's where I'd be really concerned is there is no way you'd want to then publish a game under this, because then you could be sued by that company as well, because you're using software and technologies that are maybe patented by them, or at least copyrighted by them. And
Well,
they're stuck.
Speaking of game engines and gaming, we covered a few weeks ago a story about how Unity was proposing a merger with a company by the name of Iron Source. Iron Source provides mobile ad network and mobile services to apps. Well, a couple of days ago, a rival company to Iron Source by the name of AppLovin, who, by the way, stock has been in the toilet the past couple of months, unrelated. They, instead of Unity merging with Iron Source, now AppLovin is trying to merge with Unity. Brian, Unity is the blonde head, is the head of the cheerleading team. Everybody's trying to merge with Unity.
Yeah, everybody wants them.
In this, the AppLovin has proposed an all-stock deal offering $58.85 a share for Unity, which is an 18% premium on the company's stock price that on the day before this merger was announced. Part of this deal, though, is obviously contingent on Unity striking out and closing the deal with Iron Source that was announced just a few weeks ago. AppLovin CEO Adam Fordyce said, "Over the last decade, we have built and operated a leading and innovative company in the mobile app marketing and monetization solutions." They are the exact same thing as Iron Source. That is a way for mobile app monetization and revenue, and it is very it is a very these are very successful companies, even though you've likely never heard of AppLovin or never heard of Iron Source prior to these stories over the past couple of weeks. I mean, AppLovin did nearly $3 billion in revenue in 2021. I mean, that is a serious chunk of change. Now there is I guess a bidding war. I guess you could potentially describe it as.
They offered $17.54 billion, to buy Unity.
Yep.
Who knows? I assume that's a reasonable price. And then, so Unity responded here one day ago. They have rejected the offer. So they have officially rejected being taken over by AppLovin. And I can't imagine that it would have helped Unity go in a positive direction, having been purchased by an advertising company.
So let me ask you this:
who keeps trying to buy them?
So, but let me ask you this: it's obviously not a money thing, because the same board also denied the Iron Source merger, which was about $5 billion. Then they denied this $17.5 billion bid by AppLovin. So my question to you is, why do these companies want Unity? And why does Unity not want to be wanted by them? You have two rival companies wanting Unity, and Unity doesn't want any of them. Something doesn't make sense.
Here's my theory. Here's what I think is really happening. I think that Unity right now totally dominates the mobile gaming market. I think most games are made in Unity across the board. And I think they see that there's more opportunity for money by getting a percentage of the sales of all of these different Unity projects, rather than being purchased by a single advertising agency. Then 100% of the games developed in Unity will then be forced to use a specific advertising platform, which will probably then turn around and kill the whole Unity platform. Because a developer wants to have the choice of what advertising platform they put their game in, whether, who they have serve ads, things like that. And, you don't want to be forced to use a particular set of advertisements in your game, which if that company purchases them, I can't imagine them then not turning around and forcing everybody who has a license with Unity to use their specific ad platform built into the engine. I think that's what it comes down to, is they realize there's more opportunity for money by getting money on a consistent basis from all of the different advertising platforms.
But you assume, and this is under the assumption, that the grass continues to be as green as it is. I mean, what if Apple or Google or one of these companies makes a major change in their services and Unity is, I mean, you're talking about a $17 billion acquisition for the Unity board to reject this takeover. You know, if I was a stockholder and a shareholder in Unity, I would need to know, okay, what do you think you're going to be able to do better? And why do you think that, you know, we can continue to fight this out? Because, you know, at this point, it seems that all Unity has is to lose. I mean, I'm not indicating that Unity is going anywhere, that mobile gaming is going on. If anything, the indication is it's going to continue to grow. It's not a takeover, it's a merger. And I understand your point completely, but I think a lot of that is things have to continue to go as good as they are right now.
They've worded it as a takeover. They're proposed a takeover by AppLovin so AppLovin would own Unity.
Yeah, I mean, technically it is a purchase. So yeah, I mean, technically you're right.
Yeah. And for instance, who knows? Because within the last week, Unity signed a multi-million-dollar contract with the U.S. government, Department of Defense.
Yeah,
who knows if there are things in there that would have been an issue with their contract, saying, you know, you can't have, because we'd have to really look at AppLovin. Where are their government? Where people that own that company? Where are they based out of? You know, would there have been conflicts of interest?
Well, they're a publicly traded company.
Put that deal in. Yeah, but you know who? But is there a majority stock ownership in certain places? That's the kind of stuff that I would be wondering in the background. Let's say China, Tencent, whoever has a majority ownership in AppLovin. That could cause a lot of issues with them then having multi-million-dollar deals with the Department of Defense. Yeah. So, you know, those are the type of things I'm wondering in the background if they kind of almost have to reject certain types of offers.
Looking at a little bit more detail into this, and here's a different article, and this one is claiming that while they rejected the AppLovin deal, they are they are going to continue with their deal to purchase ironSource. So they'd rather own ironSource, which presumably is a smaller company, and that Unity would rather own ironSource than be owned by AppLovin. Which I guess makes sense.
Yeah, and then they'll be a competitor to AppLovin. I mean, I think that AppLovin realizes if they get this other deal, that it's going to kill their company.
So maybe that's what this was. Maybe this is them trying to. This is maybe their attempt to try and cover their own ass.
Because if the company that has the majority of your clients, you know, using that product, is probably a majority of AppLovin's clients, whatever they're serving ads through, is probably a majority of Unity projects. Well, as soon as ironSource is purchased, and then that becomes the pretty much the one service that you get the best deal through, you know, let's say a high percentage of the people then start using that as their ad platform, then how many clients is AppLovin going to lose? Probably a lot. And their stock has already been low. You know, it's been going down because of the news of this thing. I'd have to see where it is now. It was good in 2021, but 2022, it didn't look like it was so good. So I bet you that's a lot of it is them realizing if they didn't make this purchase and they didn't prevent Unity from purchasing this advertising company, that their company is going to suffer highly for it, because that's probably a majority of where their money comes from.
Yeah,
because Unreal Engine is not great for making these type of things. Yeah, there you go. Look at the stocks recently. It's been on a downward trend.
Yeah, year to date it went from about $94 a share to $32 a share. That's the 52-week high and low.
And I'd be interested in on around April 26th. You know, was that when some of these things were announced with Unity and the possibility of them? You know, that'd be an interesting thing to see. Is what caused that huge dip? Like, what news was released on that date? Was it anything to do with this possible merger or purchase of another rival advertising agency by Unity? Because Unity is, if for people in the know, it is the primary gaming platform for mobile. It just is. Because these other engines just don't do it well. This one does.
Yeah, and then the Unity stock.
I think there's more. I think there's more underneath it, but I think that's a lot of what is pushing this whole thing.
It is very interesting, and I think what this goes to show me more than anything else, Brian, is anybody that says mobile gaming and app gaming and things like that is not the future and is not profitable. Well, I think that it continues to be proven time and time again to be completely a falsehood. All right, Brian, we are out of time here today. Anything else to quickly mention before we jump out of here?
No, we'll have some, of course, some new things interesting to talk about next week. But if you want to find me, you can get me at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and Truth Social. Or, of course, you can go to my blog, biteoftech.com. I encourage you to go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, where on the upper right-hand side, you can join our server on Discord if you want to come and maybe submit some news topics that you think we should discuss during the next show. We have a channel in there. Just put a link to it, and we'll review it for the live show. I also have 11 ARC servers all running that you can go and jump in to whatever one you want and jump between the different servers with your dinosaurs. We have video forms of the podcast, so Twitch, YouTube, BitChute, and DLive that are live, and then after the fact, you can watch some recordings on those. And then our audio form, which is recorded and then uploaded after the show. So if you're going to do that, we'll have our show notes posted as well. So while you listen, you can go and click on the particular videos and articles and things that we reference throughout the show and be able to see what we're seeing on the screen. And we have a nice little audio and video player in there that makes it easy to watch while on the webpage, and a lot of useful links. If you want to support the show, there's a support option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support. And we appreciate it for maybe conventions that might happen someday that who knows once the sanity, if it returns.
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. Brian, thank you very much. As always, my friend, greatly appreciated, and we will see you next week.
See you later.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you for joining us here on another edition of Infection. If you want to check out some of my political antics and whatnot, you can visit my website, nickcraig.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I know, evil, idiot, hypocrite using Twitter. You can follow me over there at Nicholas M. Craig. If you missed any portion of this show, maybe you want to check out some show notes or some things that we talked about, head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.